298-1490, 298-1490. Stacy, on my first day back, you're going to throw me for a loop like that and start with different intro? I'm like, do I go now? Is that show? I have no idea who's in that show. I just know that this song is from that.
Our wonderful engineer told me about it. I had no idea what it was.
The show or the song?
Both.
Wait a minute. Wait.
Both.
Wait.
Well, I mean, Stacy's the worst at this, though. You should know this by now, Ryan. Dude lives in a cave, a literal cave.
Zach, do you know the rapper Mace?
Remember
Well, yeah,
Mace?
everybody knows Mace.
Do you know Mace remixed this and released a song with that sample in it like 5 years ago?
Well, I thought Mace became a priest.
He did, and then he came back. The song was about him coming. We'll find it later. It's fantastic.
Michael, you have strong thoughts on this.
We have totally gone off the rails.
Do Mace get the ladies, Michael Lev?
I have no idea.
Oh God, okay. Dang.
Just in case you're wondering, he does.
He does.
Cool.
Hey, welcome back, Zach.
And thank you. It's great to be back. This is our annual NFL draft special. We do it every year. So just in case you're wondering what's going on, we'll be joined by these two fine gentlemen to my left throughout the show. Though, Michael, you're. You know the problem with that sound now? I think of that and it's so great, but now you know how I feel, and I know that I'm totally alone here. I can't stand fantasy football. And every time people do fantasy drafts, now that's what I think of. Fantasy football has totally taken that sound and just I'm just the worst person. I'm the worst person. So we're going to get to the big picture here in a second. We'll get to I know that people say, well, Arizona, they don't have any draft. Take it easy on that. It's not going to be on the front end, but there are definitely some things that you need to look for. We'll also talk Pac-12. We'll get into the Cardinals. And then what time's the first pick drop, Stacy? Like 5-10?
Around there.
Depends on how long
Cleveland takes.
And one of you told us, was it you, Lev, that said that Shefty's reporting that it is going to be Myles Garrett?
Yeah, I got that update about 40 minutes ago.
Right. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if Adam Schefter says it's happening, it's already happened.
Adam Schefter is the Michael Lev of the NFL. By the way, terrible team taking best player. That's good. That's good, right? I mean, the Cleveland Browns can't screw this up, can they?
Well, that sounds like a challenge.
Yes, that's true.
But here's the thing, and we were talking about this earlier. Would you feel differently if Cleveland was not sitting on, is it the 12th pick as well? Would you feel differently about them taking Myles Garrett if they only had one first-round draft pick?
I would say a little bit differently.
But not enough to make you change.
The beauty of the situation that they're in is that not only do they have the 12th pick in the draft, I think they have 2 seconds. So they have tons of ammunition to go ahead and trade back into the top 10 and have their cake and eat it too. They get Myles Garrett and they get their possible quarterback of the future. Of course, Cleveland's track record when it comes to drafting quarterbacks is not very good.
Or signing them.
Or anything, really, since like the mid-'80s.
Even the movie Draft Day sucked.
I still haven't seen it, and I'm not sure I ever
No, don't.
The ending ruins it. It's an okay movie until the end.
Yeah, until he makes a trade that like only a 3-year-old.
You're ruining it. You're ruining it for Michael Lev.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
It's okay. It's all right.
So you're telling me they're not going with RG3 for their future?
Well, don't they have? Is RG3 still on the roster? Don't they have Brock Osweiler?
They do have Brock Osweiler. Yes, when they made that NBA-esque kind of salary dump trade with Houston, so Houston could get out of the contract and. They ended up with, Cleveland ended up getting more draft picks in that deal than what they gave up. So it was kind of a win-win for them, and they can kind of see what they have in Brock Osweiler. I wouldn't be too optimistic after what happened last year with a superior supporting cast.
Oh, my God, and that defense, too. I mean, they couldn't do anything with it. One of the talks around the draft today, and, I have to scoff a little bit because, one, that's who I am, and two, it seems to be that it's always this way to a point. People keep telling me, or I keep hearing, there's so much uncertainty in this draft. Isn't that kind of how the draft goes? I guess sometimes there are more obvious number ones, but are there? Do you get more obvious than this?
I know. From my standpoint,
why do I keep hearing that?
I mean, Myles Garrett is, I think, the most clear-cut number one draft pick probably in the last 5 years. The Cleveland Browns have so many holes that it's not like they're drafting a guy who's going to sort of, butt up against their best player. The Browns are terrible at every position except for the one that Joe Thomas plays.
I was going to say they do have Joe Thomas.
Right. And so, Myles Garrett, you just take the best guy. We're going to talk about it, and we've heard and read so much about this over the last week or so, Zach. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it's you're terrible and this guy is good. Pick him.
But But
let's not overthink this.
Well,
Cleveland got themselves into this position by overthinking.
I know, but they did the same thing last year. That's the thing, is that you're telling me they're not going to screw this up, but, oh, by the way, don't look at last year because they totally screwed it up.
Well, right. I mean, they shouldn't screw this up. Myles Garrett, and maybe it took somebody as clearly number one as Myles Garrett in terms of sort of his measurables, and Cleveland can look past Myles Garrett at number one.
I smell a challenge. It's like last year the Diamondbacks said, they can't get any worse. And they said, oh, yeah?
Want to
bet? This. So everybody stand back. Now, we talk about Myles Garrett being just this generational type player, right? I mean, he can play linebacker. He can come off the end defensively. When we talk about busts or bust potential, what is it about this guy do you guys think that lowers his risk? Because we've heard this talk before, and we've seen guys that just Tony Mandarich.
I think it kind of depends on what your expectations are and whether you keep them realistic. This guy has been compared to the likes of Jadeveon Clowney, Julius Peppers. They're all huge. They're like 6'6", 270 pounds, yet run like guys who are 240 pounds. And when people watch their film, they wonder, like, why isn't this guy dominating on every single play? To me, that is unrealistic. Is he going to produce 10 to 12 sacks a year? To me, that's about the baseline level. If he's doing that, if he's a regularly disruptive force, then I think it's a good pick. If he's, let's say, 90%, 85% of what Von Miller has turned out to be, I think that's a good pick. If you're expecting him to be, the greatest player of all time, I think that's unrealistic.
Well, and I think that the best way to minimize your bust potential is to draft guys who don't traditionally bust. I mean, quarterback is a very big risk-reward position when it comes to the draft.
It is.
Stacy and I were talking about this just the other day. To me, the safest play is always O-line and D-line. And if you were a GM who had a 10-year contract, Zach Clark, and if you knew that you couldn't get fired from having one bad year, I think that you would take an O-lineman or a D-lineman in the first round of every draft.
And if I remember, your conversation was that's why guys in places like Pittsburgh do so, because they can draft without fear.
Why were you listening on your day off, Zach?
I'm a radio.
Okay. But you're right. I mean, that's it. And you look at the teams that traditionally draft the best, it's teams that don't have ownership breathing down their necks, threatening to fire them. You look at the Patriots and you look at the Steelers, you look at the Packers. I mean, those are, to me, sort of the three standards.
Now, my only objection to that thought, and you're right, is ownership not breathing down their neck because they have done a good job? There's something to really talk about?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
certainly the Steelers are adverse to firing people.
Right.
We know that, and it's paid off very well for them.
Well, and if you look at the Cleveland Browns being the perfect example, I think teams tank in the draft and they struggle in the draft when they reach. When they try to take a quarterback because you need a quarterback, right? When they go get somebody to put butts in the seats. I mean, like Johnny Manziel. I think that was a perfect example. When you keep it simple and take the best guy available, good things happen. And, with Cleveland, maybe Cleveland trades up with their second pick or gets,
they feel like they have to get the quarterback they want.
To get the quarterback they want. I'm not necessarily sure that there's a law that says you have to take a quarterback, though, if you're the Cleveland Browns. They are so thin at so many positions that you can just take the best guy available every time you draft. And you know what? Maybe Brock Osweiler fits.
There's also the theory that they should, quote unquote, tank again this year and put themselves in this position next year when Sam Darnold of USC is going to be available, Josh Rosen of UCLA, guys who I would say are probably going to be superior prospects to the group of quarterbacks that we're looking at this year.
Yeah, and that's a
really good point.
That's an interesting thought because, again, can I say this? That no matter what you do, if you're Cleveland, it is unlikely you will be good next year, even if you have a phenomenal draft. There's not enough players. You don't have enough plugs to fill the holes.
And maybe you shore up one side of the ball at a time, too. I mean, you look at Cleveland's defense.
Look at what Denver's done when they invest in defense.
Yeah, but I mean, Jamie Collins, good player. Emmanuel Ogbah, good player. Joe Hayden, good player. I mean, maybe
they got Jamie Collins for nothing.
I know. And maybe if you go out and go defense in the first round, shore up that side of the ball, maybe you'll be an improving team next year that might be a quarterback or a receiver away.
I was just going to say, in theory, if you do this right, whoever you draft at quarterback next year will be joining a better team than the current team.
So if that's the thought, though, do you focus more? I mean, certainly you take Myles Garrett first, but then do you hunker down on another offensive lineman? Because you want to build a wall around this guy, right?
I would say offensive line is probably the best position on the team.
Yeah.
They have a lot of guys. They have Joel Bitonio. They have Thomas, who you mentioned. They drafted Cam Irving high a couple years ago. So that's actually probably the strength of the team.
Okay.
They lack pretty much everything else, though. So you could go anywhere with that second pick if you don't do the package up to get a quarterback move.
What are the odds they don't take a quarterback in the first round?
I wouldn't if I were them.
No, that's not what I said.
Yeah, I think it's 50-50. And I think that if they take a quarterback, they'll take him with the second pick.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it's better than 50-50 that they will make a move and trade up and take one, based on all the chatter that we're hearing about how much they like Trubisky internally within the organization. They have the chance to get both. They have the chance to get Garrett and Trubisky, who's an Ohio guy.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing.
But an Ohio guy who's done nothing. I mean, I don't
all
know.
the other quarterbacks haven't done much either. I mean,
well, the national champion's a pretty good quarterback. I mean, if you look at Deshaun Watson, he is a
haven't done
guy.
anything yet, though.
No, that's true. And Pat Mahomes, I sort of love Pat Mahomes, as Stacey knows. Big, strong-armed kid who I think could really fit in well.
You sort of love somebody
Towards the end of the first round.
Huge man crush here.
Huge man crush.
I think there's a difference between Ryan sort of loving somebody and Ryan loving somebody.
It's like one of those things with Rich Rod and loving football.
You can't just like it.
You gotta love it.
You gotta love
okay,
it. But to me, I'm not sure that there is a quarterback that you're willing to sell out the future for in this draft.
Well, we've got a few minutes here. Let's talk about that, because it seems like Trubisky has become the front runner here, and I don't know if it's one of those things where he's actually the front runner, or it's like the stock market. There's a run on stock, and all of a sudden everybody's like, "We got to have that one." So I'm not sure what's pushing his.
Well, you have to remember, with every single one of these players, it's a projection of what they're going to become. None of them are finished products. You're trying to visualize what can this guy be 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Right.
There is a danger with Mitchell Trubisky in that he's only started 13 games. Mm-hmm. Historically, if you look at college quarterbacks who don't have a ton of starts in their careers, it's usually a bad sign. I think the best example of that is probably Mark Sanchez from USC, who started for only 1 year. If you recall, when he decided to declare from the draft, it was a very awkward press conference with then coach Pete Carroll, who was really very much opposed to the move. It looked like a great move for the Jets because they got into the AFC Championship game in each of Mark Sanchez's first 2 seasons, but they had a great running game. They had a great defense. They were kind of carrying him, not the other way around. Then he started regressing, and now he's just a journeyman.
It's interesting because if you look at, you talk about USC and you talk about guys that have played. How about guys that didn't start at all? I mean, that's the thing.
Matt Castle.
And you know what? The other day for fun, I looked. $80 million. $80 million. That is how much money Matt Castle has made in the NFL. Now, I'm not saying he's been a good quarterback, but my goodness.
80?
Yeah, that's right.
80 mil.
That is a very unusual case.
Oh, no,
and
I know.
I think on guys now to do that than maybe there was 10 or 15 years ago.
Oh, my God. As soon as you smell I'm not playing, you're gone.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Right. And quarterback, as we all know, is a unique position in that only one can play at a time.
Right. And even then, you're not going to – right. So if you had to pick one, if somebody put a gun to your head and said pick a quarterback right now, what do you do? I happen to like Deshaun Watson, but I don't know if that's a good pick or not.
I think it's all about fit. I think it depends on who you are as a franchise.
Yeah, but okay, you're Cleveland, and you're terrible, and you're garbage.
If you're Cleveland and you're terrible, I think you want a guy who'll play right away. And if that's the case, you want Deshaun Watson. If you were the Arizona Cardinals, maybe, or the New York Giants, or the Los Angeles Chargers.
Man, Ryan just died right in front of us.
I just died. And you have an aging quarterback who you don't need to replace today, who you might need to replace 2 years from now.
Or a year from now.
I mean, I'd take a flyer on Patrick Mahomes.
Well, they like him a lot, and they've talked to him. They like him. I just got air supply in here. Ryan just died in our arms tonight. It must have been something you said. Sorry, I couldn't resist. You look at, a couple years ago we were having the conversation when it comes to running backs that we may never see one taken in the first round again. And I was pretty confident in that, the way we'd seen them get used and abused in the way that trends were developing. But then you see guys like Todd Gurley kind of break out of that. And then this year, I think you're going to see two go relatively early in McCaffrey and Fournette. What do you think is changing that thought process? Because it seems to have changed one way quickly and then gone back the other way pretty quickly.
Well, I think there's a couple things. One, they're just exceptionally good players.
No question.
Okay. The second thing to me with Christian McCaffrey specifically is I don't think he's a running back. I think he's a running back slash
whatever you
slot
want
receiver slash returner. I think
He's
you're
Reggie
getting
Bush.
more value. Yeah, he's Reggie Bush, but a better inside runner.
Yep.
Does that sound like the sort of player you'd like to invest in?
Yes.
I would say that it is. And so with modern offenses, I mean, everybody plays out of the shotgun now, right? He's the perfect guy to put alongside your quarterback. You can split him into the slot. You can split him out wide. He can run routes. He can also help you in the return game. He can also run that inside draw play when everyone is spread out, and I think do that very well. So to me, when I look at him, I don't see him as just a running back. I see him as something more.
I agree. I think that's it. I think that in Christian McCaffrey, you're getting somebody who can play a couple different positions, return some kicks for you. Fournette, I think, is a little bit of a different deal. And only because of the teams that he's being connected to. I think if Jacksonville were to draft him, it smells a little bit like a stunt to me. Jacksonville's a team that I think is trying to fill the seats. It's a team that has always been in love with SEC players.
The defense has gotten better, though.
I mean, when they talked about Tim Tebow, how much Tim Tebow to Jacksonville talk did we hear over the years? As they were trying to sort of...
We're still not hearing it.
I know, but get some sort of an identity there. To me, I think McCaffrey's a top 8 pick. I think Fournette's maybe a 12 to 15 pick, somewhere down a little bit further. I think McCaffrey's a better player.
I agree with Ryan in the sense that Leonard Fournette is a more traditional type of running back.
No question. An
Adrian Peterson style, a guy you want to line up in the I formation, not a great pass catcher. If you draft Leonard Fournette, to me, you have to pretty much change your offense.
Yep.
If the Jacksonville Jaguars select him, they have to become a running team. Mm-hmm. He's not just a complementary piece. I think you can fit Christian McCaffrey into whatever you're doing, whereas if you draft Leonard Fournette, you have to build the offense around him.
More of the Zach Clark Show and the NFL Draft Specialist next on ESPN Tucson 1490 and 104.9 FM. A little Al Green on a Thursday afternoon, thanks to our friends at 106.3 The Groove. And, of course, the hand selector of our songs, Miss Crystal Pino. You can catch her 6 to 10 a.m., 106.3 The Groove. We're going to jump back into our general NFL draft conversation. Don't forget I'm joined by Ryan Finley and Michael Levin. We'll take you all the way through 6 o'clock, though I will point out that at 5 o'clock we will start rolling the draft out with us. So when it's time to make picks, you'll hear them and we'll talk about them. But now let's talk about a local product, a former Arizona Wildcats football player that has aspirations of the next level. Joining us now on the All-Pro Plumbing studio line, Paul McGlure. Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's always great to have you on the program. And Paul, going back a little bit, since Arizona's football season ended, how do you think you have gotten better, more complete as a football player?
I think, I've gotten a lot better playing defense in general. I mean, considering the fact that I haven't been on defense too long and not even playing linebacker too long, I feel like I took a lot of the coaching that I got, at the All-Star games that I went to and a lot of the one-on-one coaching I got leading up to Pro Day and getting my position drills correct and on pat. I feel like, everything's really starting to come together and I'm really starting to, peak. I feel like the ceiling for me is really high and I'm really getting up there in my play.
Paul, you played high school football, prep school football, FCS football, JUCO football, Division I football. You really haven't – there's really nowhere you haven't played. How do you think that's helped you grow as a person and as a football player?
Yeah, you name it. I mean, I've been there, done that. But I feel like my journey and all the things that I've done and, the path that I took is a lot different than everybody else, and it makes me unique, and I've, dealt with all types of coaches, the mean ones, the strict ones, the cool ones, the laid-back ones, so, I adapt to every coach's coaching style and how they coach, and, I'm an easy player to coach, and I feel like that's one thing that this journey has really made me, somebody who's easy to coach and easy on coaches' eyes and all that stuff. So I feel like the journey is unique and it's something that not everybody's taking, and I pride myself on it.
You talk about being able to be coached by anybody, and as you've gone through individual meetings, workouts, things like that, how has that helped you be able to show off your best self in a new setting? I mean, it's got to help a lot.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, just like, you got certain coaches that are big on, doing it outside and having you walk through. You got coaches that just go on whiteboards and they draw it up and won't go over film. You got coaches that will only show you on film and you're watching somebody else do it. So, I mean, you got to adapt to however they coach. I mean, you got to adapt to it. I mean, especially at this level now with the NFL and how coaches coach, they're not going to be able to cater to you and kind of baby. You got to kind of swing to it. So if they're just coaching it on the film or they're, handing out an iPad, you just got to, figure out what way, you best learn and how you'll figure it out.
Hey, Paul, Michael Lev here.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, man, how are you? So tell us where you're going to be watching the draft, who's going to be there with you, and also what's on the menu. And as we all know, you're a skilled chef in addition to a football player.
Well, I'm in Arizona. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, with my girlfriend, her family. My family flew out, and my son, and I got my agent coming out as well, and his team of people, and those are the people that I'll be around watching it. And on the menu, that's a tough one. It's crazy. I was talking to my girlfriend and her mom and everybody on, what should I cook? And the menu really hasn't been created just yet. But we know tonight we're going to just order takeout and watch round one and all that stuff. And but the real menu is going to be Saturday and maybe Friday. I'm not sure. But we're going to figure it out. It'll be something good, though. I promise you that.
Paul, Ryan Finley here. Tell me about some.
Ryan?
I'm doing great, man. Hey, tell me about some of your visits and.
To go down to the Cardinals facility and see everything over there, and it was really cool getting to go to New York and meet all the staff and GMs and all that stuff, and tour the facilities and all that, and be out in New York. it's a surreal experience. You know, it's something you don't really think you get the opportunity to do. And you know, people ask me if I'm nervous for the draft, and I tell them, "Oh no, I'm not nervous," and they're like, "Well, how are you not nervous?" You know, and I pride myself as I'm a step ahead that a lot of people won't even make it to. So I mean that's it's not good enough for me, but it's in a way it's good enough for me. I don't know how that sounds exactly, but I feel like I'm at a point where not everybody will get to it.
Joined by Paul McGlure on the All Pro Plumbing studio line. And Paul, I know you just want to play and you don't care where it is, but is there a type of defensive system that you feel like you fit better than others? Is there a scheme, a setup? Where do you feel you're most comfortable?
One thing I learned at the East-West Shrine game, you know, getting coached by all these different coaches, is a lot of the defenses in the NFL are the same. Everybody's got sub-packages. So, I mean, whether you're a linebacker, they want to say, hey, he's a 3-down linebacker, he's a 2-down linebacker, somebody got to take out third downs. You know, there's somebody has a role. You're gonna have a role. So if you're a guy who could cover and is that guy who could lock down a running back on third down, then your role will be just that. You'll be that dime linebacker. If you're a linebacker who's heavy on the run, you'll be in the first 2 downs. You know, so I mean, it's a huge organization. It's a lot of money that's going into the NFL. So they do a good job in finding guys that they need for everything that they got going on, each team.
Paul, Ryan Finley here again. What has this whole process taught you?
The whole process definitely taught me just to trust the process in general. If something's not going your way, you just got to stick to it, and you got to understand that God's got you, and he made this plan up for you, and it's not something that's just happening as you go along. It's already done. Like, he already knows where I'm going to get drafted. You know, I'm just sitting in the passenger seat. So I understand that everything's already said and done, and I'm on the right path. I'm going the right direction.
Paul, looking back at your former team, the Arizona Wildcats, give us a reason why you think the defense might be better next year in year 2 under Marcel Yates.
It's just like, wine. It gets better with time. So, I mean, everything gets better with time, and I feel like everybody will be more seasoned. The players will know what's going on. They'll be able to teach it themselves. They'll be able to play faster because they understand the defensive scheme. And I think that's a huge thing. It's not athletic ability at all. There's athletes on that team. It's just a matter of everybody understanding what their role is. And I think this year they're really going to understand what's going on.
Now, Paul, I know that nobody has any guarantees, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, Saturday, but do you have any sense of what's going to happen to you over the next few days? I mean, maybe just a gut feeling or something you've heard. I mean, do you have any idea what's going to happen next?
Not really. I mean, you don't know because teams, you're in a good position because teams are calling.
Sure.
But you don't know. I mean, they all, give you the same answer. Like, we don't know how the draft's going to go. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of guys they watch, they know they're not going in the first round, but it's good to watch the first round. If a lot of guys get taken in your position, there might be a need, a little bit earlier in the draft. Like, you don't really know. So, I mean, teams, they don't know what's going to go down in the draft. You got trades, you got teams that want to trade back to get more picks and teams that want to trade up. So, nobody knows how the draft is going to go until it starts going. And once it starts going, it's a snowball. So, my status could change completely. So, I don't really know. When I talk with teams, I give them the information that they ask for, phone numbers, how I get contacted and who my agent is and stuff like that. And then it's just really small talk, and it's always a good luck at the end. So, you just got to kind of, have faith and, be positive and everything, and everything's going to pan out good for me. I didn't get this journey of going to all these schools and playing for so many different coaches and changing positions so much and doing things and all for nothing, and I think it's going to be a nice little happy ending.
Arizona letterman Paul McGlure played linebacker and safety at Arizona. He'll be among the many who wait to hear their name called over the next few days. Paul, as always, best of luck, my friend. Thank you so much for the time.
I appreciate you guys having me, and don't feel, don't be scared to ever have me back on.
Paul, I'm never afraid to have you on, my friend. You better believe that's true.
All right, sounds good.
Take care, brother.
All right, you too.
I think that's the first time I've had Paul on and we didn't talk about Disney Junior shows.
Oh, we can talk about Disney Junior shows.
He and I have our children are the same age, Paul and I. So.
That was a good interview with a draft prospect. You know, when ESPN has the guys through the car wash, usually those interviews are pretty boring. I thought Paul really brought it.
He was, and the problem with those car washes, not that ESPN doesn't serve a strong purpose, but man, after you've been asked the same question 8 times in one day, I can't imagine how else he answered it. It's like in Austin Powers when Will Ferrell's character could only lie twice, and the third time he had to tell the truth no matter what. All right, we're coming back talking NFL draft, and let's stick locally. We'll take a look at some Arizona kids that may have a shot a little bit later this weekend. That's next on ESPN Tucson 1490 and 104.9 FM. That is real love, Stacy, on a Thursday afternoon.
Not with you back, it's not.
Well, that probably is the case. It is Throwback Thursday. Thanks to Crystal Pino and 106.3 The Groove. Hey, don't forget the 11th annual Stella Artois Iron Chef Tucson returns to the West in La Paloma June 3rd. 2 new competitors will vie for the Iron Chef Tucson crown. I got to find out, Stacey. I don't think there's an actual crown, but there needs to be.
We can definitely get one. I have plenty of them at home.
I was going to say, do they say Burger King on the front?
No.
Oh, come on. Oh, you have
No, they're all little princess crowns.
Those are called tiaras.
Same difference.
You can vote for your favorite now or after you meet the chef's night on Wednesday, May 3rd at the Rialto, sponsored by Rio Nuevo. Details at our website, ESPNTucson.com.
That's next Wednesday.
Wow. Already?
Meet the chefs next Wednesday, Rialto. Highly recommend it.
Dude, the Iron Chef is awesome. They send me every year, and I'm just like, okay. I'll gladly eat all this food and drink this beer at this nice hotel. Done! Annual draft special. You're in the middle of it. Michael Lev, Ryan Finley with us. And, we just talked to Paul McGlure, who obviously prepped at Arizona, at least for a fraction of his long football life at this point. We can argue draft impact and what that actually means in a variety of ways. But over the last couple of years, Arizona, the Wildcats, have not had big showings, really any showing for that matter. Not that it's been non-existent. But what do you all think? What does that say about Arizona? Is it anything more than just a lack of NFL talent, which obviously is a problem, but is it more deeply seated?
It just so happens, Zach, that this is the very topic that I'm writing about for tomorrow's paper. It's a pretty in-depth look at this whole situation. There will be charts involved, right, Ryan?
I like charts. They make it easier.
There's math.
So I'll give you a little sneak preview of some of the numbers here. Over the last 5 years, Arizona has had 8 players selected in the draft. Only one of those third round or higher, and that was Nick Foles in 2012. If you look at the previous 5-year block, it was 15 players. So roughly half over the last 5 years compared to the previous 5. That total of 8 in the last 5 years is the third lowest total in the conference, ahead of only Colorado and Washington State. It goes back mainly to recruiting.
No question.
There's a myriad number of reasons why they haven't found the right guys, but they're not finding the right guys, clearly. And it has kind of this this cause and effect where you want to bring in NFL guys and you want to sell them on the idea that you can develop them into NFL guys, but if you don't have the draft picks in recent years to show them how you can do that, it's hard to get them to come to your school.
It's like the opposite of what Sean Miller has. Right? I mean, because all Sean has to do is say, you want to play at the next level? Look at all these dudes. Right? But if you're rich, you got to say, look over there. We have a big scoreboard. Right, Ryan?
Yes, with 2 different kinds of red helmets. One that's reflective and one that is matte.
And a copper one floating around somewhere.
Well, and it's tricky, and Michael touches on this in his story a little bit. You get into kind of this death spiral when you talk about recruiting. You go, Kind of. It's, well, why aren't they developing NFL players? Well, it's because they're not recruiting. Well, their inability to develop NFL players hurts their ability to pull themselves out of that death spiral in recruiting. And so it makes it tougher and tougher and tougher. And there are ways to sort of pull yourself out. I think, going the JC route always helps. People forget, Nick Foles was a transfer from Michigan State. Mm-hmm. People forget Tom Savage, who's going to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League this year, was a transfer. He then transferred on. I was
going to say he was a multiple-time offender. Yes.
But he was somebody. Rutgers, Arizona, then Pitt.
Right.
And then you look. Somebody like Jamarcus Webb. Remember him? He was a JC guy who Arizona couldn't get into school. 2 years later was the starting, I believe, left tackle for the Chicago Bears. There are ways to recruit different kinds of people and get them into the NFL draft. Paul McGlure is a perfect example, JUCO guy. That it's not as simple, or it's not as hard maybe as Rich Rodriguez is making it sound.
You're making it look hard.
But there are ways to do it. This brings up a larger question, though. Is the job of a college football program to develop NFL players?
I can answer that, I think.
At a place like Arizona, I don't think it is.
No, but it is your token. It is your how like birds have like mating calls and the male bird's like, oh my God, that sound, I'm drawn to it. Arizona's mating calls, they don't have one. They don't have one. They have nothing to show. They have nothing to attract you. Hey, come down and play football. It's 110 degrees. We have no indoor. Who wants to hang out?
I think the job of the college football program is to win college football games.
I agree with that. But to win college football games, you have to have legitimate talent. And to get that, you've got to have something to show for it. And they don't have that.
Well, and that's where we get into this death spiral again. To win games, you need talent. And to produce pros, you need talent. But the only way you're going to...
Do you guys think that Rich Rod's offensive system hurts
the
program in that regard? They are not going to recruit the quote-unquote pro-style quarterback in all likelihood to play in this system. They're looking for more of the dual threat type of guy. Right. So they're not really going to be in the market for that top-end quarterback, for example. They're not necessarily going to run a quote-unquote pro-style system, although I don't know what that means anymore these days because so many NFL teams play sort of a spread-looking offense. But, maybe you're not running the types of routes that NFL receivers run. I mean, they've had so many incredibly productive college receivers who just haven't gotten drafted at all. I mean, I detailed it all in that story I did on Trey Griffey the other day. I mean, his career numbers are comparable to the single-season numbers of Austin Hill, who didn't get drafted and is still looking for a job.
Yeah. And
Dan Buckner. Dan Buckner looked as good in practice as any football player I have ever seen. Jaron Kreiner was a close second.
I could argue that they have something in common that's nothing to do with football.
Yeah, yes, but you look at it, when you're an offense like Rich Rodriguez is too, do the numbers mean anything? I mean, if you're throwing the ball, say, 40 times a game, the way Arizona was sort of forced to do it the last couple of years under Anu Solomon.
They won't likely do that again, though, right?
Right,
I mean,
but if you put up those huge numbers, that doesn't necessarily qualify you to play in the NFL either. It's you playing an offense that just passes the ball.
But I think Griffey's his size, his skill set is what qualifies him. Throw the numbers. I don't even care about those with him. I don't.
He has traits, and I think a lot of times, NFL teams are looking more at traits than they are college production. If it was based strictly on college production, there's no way that Scooby Wright would have been the fourth to the last pick in last year's draft.
No, he'd have gone on the first day or two.
But what he didn't have was traits. He didn't have length. He didn't have speed. He didn't have, the ability to play in space. Trey Griffey has really good size. He's about 6'2", 210 pounds. He ran under 4'6". At the pro day, which is great. He's extremely physical. He's a good blocker.
And you have little concerns about him, like off the field, right?
None. No concerns at all in that regard. So does that mean he's going to get drafted? I would say it's 50-50 at best. I think he's definitely going to be a priority free agent, which means he'll have a shot.
Seahawks. It would make too much sense. Like Seahawks in the 7th round.
Seattle, again, the Mariners already drafted him. Let's just, the Seahawks follow suit.
But Pete Carroll is exactly the kind of coach who would draft Ken Griffey Jr.'s kid in the 7th round.
Well, and not only that, but they've been good at finding value in their drafts.
And he loves the Pac-12. There's a lot of Pac-12 talent on the Seattle Seahawks.
Both of their starting receivers for years and years, Doug Baldwin and Jermaine Kearse, were undrafted. So with Pete Carroll, I mean, he's looking for a specific skill set or maybe some specific physical traits. Like always in the cornerbacks, he's always looking for those bigger guys who can play press or just kind of excel in a zone, and they're not the types who are going to trail receivers all over the field. I think why Pete Carroll's been successful since he got to the NFL is he kind of knows what he wants. And he knows what to look for, and he's able to find it.
And he's able to do that without interference from above him, which, again, is usually a problem. Stacey, we still have – let's take a phone call, 298-1490, All Pro Plumbing Studio Line. Fat Mike, how is you, brother?
Dude, you know what? I'm relieved to hear your voice,
well, good.
Dude. I thought you were a part of the act scene of yesterday. I thought you were along with Canal and Cass.
Like I matter enough for ESPN to even think about me. I appreciate that.
I was worried, dude. I was worried. I haven't heard you in a while, but now I know. Congratulations, bro.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it, brother.
The last legal form of slavery. Congratulations to that.
Brutal.
I want to talk about the Cowboys, but with recruiting, the juxtaposition of Rich Rod to Sean Miller. Sean Miller jumped on a Cessna to Finland to get Lowry. Homeboy Rich Rod don't want to jump on I-10 and go to Texas to get recruits, and that's just the gist of what one program is to the other. And the stats show just because we don't have any Arizona player to talk about in this draft show. But let's keep it with Texas and let's talk about the Cowboys.
You got it, Mike.
I'm not a good draft person. Last year I wanted Nick Foles them to get Nick Foles instead of picking up somebody. I was totally wrong. They picked up Dak Prescott. I wanted them to get Jalen Ramsey, and they got Zeke Elliott. So I'm not good at the draft. I try to be. But who do you see going for the Cowboys? I like Tack McKinley. I like, what's the kid's name? I want to say Humphrey from Alabama. Hey, hit me back, dude. Bear down.
Mike, thank you, brother.
Bro.
I appreciate it, man. You're the best. And yeah, I mean, I don't. But in fairness to yourself, Mike, I don't think anybody was like, "Oh my God, Dak Prescott home run." It's a good pick in the 4th round, but I don't think anybody saw
back on a ridiculously
low contract.
Yeah. They can build around him. It was the same situation that the Seahawks were in when they stumbled into Russell Wilson in the 3rd round a few years ago. To me, if I'm the Cowboys, I take the best defensive player available. Whoever you think that is, either a pass rusher or a cornerback. I think pass rusher is a little bit bigger of a need, but this is a very cornerback-rich draft, and if you like someone at that spot, late in the 1st round, I'd go that way.
Some of those LSU kids, like a Tre'Davious White. Or
Florida has 2 guys who I think are really good. Tease Tabor being one of them. He's a little slow, but
if you like 4-7 cornerbacks,
God,
sure.
I'd love to be in an Arizona uniform. I'll tell you that much.
Would have been fine here. Yeah,
no question about that. Let's take a quick break. When we're back, more NFL draft talk here on ESPN Tucson 1490 and 104.9 FM. In fact, last Saturday, my mom and I, first song, not to this one, but to a Stevie Wonder song. Big fan. Big fan. You Motown. I can't help myself. Throwback Thursday here on ESPN Tucson 1490 and 104.9 FM. Big ups to Crystal Pino 106 The Groove for making that happen. Coming up about 4:05, we're going to get into the Pac-12. I mean, obviously with Arizona, there is a teeny tiny limited number of prospects. When we open it up conference-wide, things look a little different.
Absolutely. It's a great year for the Pac-12. It's a great year for Washington. I mean,
yes.
and we'll talk about that obviously in the next segment, but I mean, there are 2 guys who could go, I mean, anywhere between 8 and 25?
So I'm hearing that John Ross is dropping. That there's an injury concern. But again, that could just be, hey, did you hear? We think John Ross is slow. Take John Ross when they pass.
Where's Al Davis when you need him?
Somewhere dreaming of drafting Darius Hayward Bay in eternity.
He's somewhere hotter, and I don't mean Las Vegas. Yes.
Oh, I don't know. No, yeah, you're probably right. 298-1490, 298-1490. Let's go to Tim. Hey, Tim, thanks for holding on. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you guys doing?
And we're well, thank you.
So as a Washington fan, I can also weigh in on that a little bit if you want. But I wanted to go back a little bit to what you guys were talking about the Seahawks and taking Griffey late on. You're right. It's 100% a Pete Carroll move, but it's not something that I feel like he would do in the 7th round. You guys touched on it. They've had a ton of success with undrafted free agents. And you know, as much of people could be taking Trey or a little gimmicky like the Mariners taking him, which is something that the Seahawks have been looking for quite a while. They tried in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. They had Chris Matthews, the guy who came out of nowhere, who made some big catches. But a guy for them that would be someone to keep an eye on is DeMaurier Stringfellow out of Ole Miss. He transferred from Washington. Pete Carroll knows him very well, and he definitely kind of fits that same type of star receiver that the Seahawks really need.
Hey, Tim, thanks for the phone call, brother. Appreciate it. I thought Chris Matthews was the host of Hardball. I must be mixing sports here.
Tim, the Seahawks fan, really going deep
I
on
know,
us
that
with
was
that
really
DeMaurier Stringfellow reference. My gosh. As he does point out, though, they have had great success with undrafted free agents. It's remarkable. Like I think I mentioned earlier, Jermaine Kearse and Doug Baldwin, both undrafted free agents who've done exceptionally well. Doug Baldwin has had 2 spectacular years in a row. But if I'm the Seahawks and there's a good offensive lineman sitting there at the end of the first round, I think you have to go in that direction. Their offensive line has been a mess for several years.
Well, ever since they traded Unger for
Jimmy Graham?
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham.
Because, I mean, they traded a good lineman for a non-blocking tight end. I mean, that's how I saw that move, at least.
A non-blocking, injury-prone tight end.
Who makes no sense in Pete Carroll's system,
None. None.
Yeah, he's been underutilized ever since he's gotten there. I mean, that was one of those kind of like, let's go for it while our window is still open kind of moves, and it really hasn't paid off.
No, it almost, if anything, it might have even closed their window a little bit.
Don't they need a cornerback, though? I mean, Deshaun Sneed tore ACL in the playoffs last year. Richard Sherman, who knows if they're going to re-sign him.
Oh, man, Richard Sherman can play all positions at the same time. How dare you talk about the quarterback?
But if he leaves,
I know.
That's kind of a big hole to fill.
Yeah, I would say that Stacy's right. That is definitely a position of need for them. I like Kevin King from Washington as a fit there because he is that big, long, lanky cover 3 type of corner. But cornerback is the deepest position in the entire draft, so I think you can get a starter as late as the 4th or 5th round. Wow. There's that many guys. So like I said, if the offensive lineman is there, I think you go that direction and go for a corner later.
And again, they've had, we talk about the undrafted success of the Seahawks, but one of the other reasons they've been so good is they did so well with guys on rookie contracts that after about 4 years, it became almost impossible to maintain that lineup because you just can't pay everybody that you drafted like that. You got to let some guys go, and they've done that.
That's exactly right, and I think that's part of the reason that Richard Sherman has been on the block lately is you can't afford everybody. He's also kind of, getting into the second half of his career. You could see maybe his play starting to fall off sometime here in the last couple of years. If we've learned anything from Bill Belichick over the years, it's you trade the guy before he starts to tank rather than after.
I mean, we just talked about a guy or that you think you're not going to use, like a Jamie Collins, basically giving him away, but they say, well, if we don't need him, whatever we can get for him is worth it. And that's what they've done, and that's what's worked. So we'll see how the Seahawks operate, all of that considered. When we come back, we're getting into the Pac-12 side of things here on ESPN Tucson 1490 and 105 FM. Our draft special is next. Stick around. ESPN Tucson 1490 and 104.9 FM, hour number 2 of our annual NFL Draft Special. Ryan Finley, Michael Lev, myself, Stacy running the show across the way. So don't forget, around 5 o'clock, whenever that first pick drops, Stacy, you will hear this sound. Yes. And then you will hear the dulcet tones of Roger Goodell, I'm sure with a chorus of boos behind them as we... I don't know how that fits, but I'll take it. I will take it. In fact, I was on 106.3 The Groove this morning, and Crystal asked me about a NFL draft drinking game, and she said every time Goodell gets booed, and I said, you can do that, but you have to dial 9 and then 1 and then be ready for that second one to drop because you're going to die.
The draft is in Philadelphia. They boo everybody there.
Booed Santa Claus.
And they're going to boo the you-know-what out of Roger Goodell. That's a guarantee.
They don't know they boo Santa Claus, but they also put batteries in their snowballs.
That's true. That's true. I would say you take a shot every time an analyst uses a word like suddenness or length.
Ooh, a deceptive speed.
Deceptive speed. But there's sort of like the vague terms that mean nothing, like length.
Or when they drool over